In this video, I will implement a feature that turns the select value into a text input, so the user can type some values and filter out options by some query string. It will take some time, so let's start to do that immediately. It is going to be configurable, so let's create a dedicated input for that, which I will call searchable, and by default it is false. So now I can go and configure my select component as a searchable. That's cool. Then searchable select should have some field where the query string can be entered, right? So we have to create a dedicated input in our template, which has some dedicated CSS selector, and we can add also some placeholder. But because this field is not going to be visible always, I need to come up with some logic that swaps the select value element with the input element and does it only when the select component is searchable and when the panel is open. We could do it by using ngIfs, but I think it would be cleaner to use the ng-switch directive here. So because I don't want to introduce any wrapper for those two elements, I will use a simple ng container that works just like some element placeholder, and you can attach different directives to it. Here I attach the directive ng-switch and provide a condition like if it is searchable and if it is open, then I'm going to render the select search input, and if not, then there will be rendered the selected value element. And yeah, let's move it and make it first. So how does it work? If the result of this expression is true, then will be activated this layout. If false, obviously there will be rendered another one. And already now we can do the intermediate check. So let's open the panel, and okay, it is ugly, but it works. I think it would be much better if we could remove the input border at all. Also, we don't need the padding. What else? It should also have a transparent background. And so let's remove also outlining from the input when we focus on it. So I use the outline non-CSS property for that. Now it looks pretty good. So let's copy these styles and go to the select component styles file and create the corresponding CSS selector and paste the styles we copied right here. Here we go. And now if we go back again to the browser and open the panel one more time, you can see that styles were applied successfully, but I'm not automatically focusing on the input when the panel opens. So I would like to fix this issue as well. To achieve that, I have to get a reference to the input element inside my component. For that, I will be using the viewChild decorator, and the selector of it will be the template variable which has name input. And I have to also create, obviously, this variable inside my component template. And the reference to this input will be stored in the search input element class property, which has a type of element ref. And namely, it is an element ref of HTML input element. Then when I open the panel in the corresponding method, I have to check if we are in the searchable mode. Then I have to call the focus method of the native input element. However, we will try to focus on the element that is not yet rendered. So I have to run it asynchronously using anything like set timeout or request animation frame. So like that. And if we go and check it one more time, you can see that it works absolutely fine and focusing happens immediately. Cool. Now we have to propagate to outside values that the user types into this search field. So the developer who uses our component can listen for the query string changes and perform some custom filtering logic. For that, we need two things. We need a dedicated output. So let's create it immediately right here. And yeah, it will be emitting some string. Cool. Then we have to handle the user input event for this search element, right? So here I create an event listener and it will be handled by this onHandle input handler method, which we are going to obviously create somewhere here inside the component class. Yes, I want to have it protected because I'm going to use it only within the component view and I don't want to expose it as a public API. And by the way, I think it makes sense to make the same also for the panel animation done handler. So here we go. But let's get back to the input handler. So it takes an event as an argument, and here I'm going to just emit a value that comes with the input element target. But because TypeScript cannot detect the type of the target, we have to cast it manually and say that it's going to be the HTML input element. Good. After that, I can just go to the component where the select component is used and start to react to this event and handle that in some corresponding method. So let's go and create it. Here we go. And the method gets a query string, and inside this method, you can actually perform any filtering logic you need. I will implement the simplest one. I will just, create another property called, let's say, filtered users, which is by default the same as the users property. And then back in my filtering method, I will filter out users whose name starts with the query string I've got, and I use two lowercase methods to not make it case sensitive. And the result of this function is going to be assigned to the filtered users property. So it means that in my template, I have to iterate through the list of filtered users. And now we are ready to go and check our feature. And you can see that things are working actually. I can filter user, I can select them, and everything seems to be fine. Everything works as I expect. The only thing I don't like is that the search query string isn't reset when the panel is closed. So let's fix that by resetting the filter method to an empty string when the panel is closed. So I'm just listening for the closed event and call a filtering method with an empty string. And also, you know what? Let's maybe remove this dynamic data emulation because I believe we don't need it anymore. All right, cool. And now let's do the final check and make sure that everything works exactly as we expect. So I open the panel, I try to filter out the user, and I can select them. So it looks like the feature works.